Hello everybody, welcome to the video that you've all been waiting for, which is part 4 of the 1,000 subscribers special for HuskyDog88, in which in this part we're actually doing a stream and we're going to talk about plots for season 3 of Clifford the Big Red Dog. So HuskyDog88, this stream is made just for you. And people like Jeremy Barton can also chat in the comments of this stream. Now, hi, here you go. Now we could go right into season 3 of Clifford the Big Red Dog. Now, I would imagine the air date for season 3. Season 3 of Clifford the Big Red Dog will premiere on May 5th, 2003 and stop on January 23rd, 2004. So these would be the official start and end air dates for season 3. What do you think? And also, as a matter of fact, I do. Oh, I don't think my mom made that. I think a very close friend of mine might have made that for me, but still, it's pretty cool. And anyway, what are your thoughts on the start and end air dates? I had that for like a few years now, and what were your thoughts on the start and end air dates for season 3 of Clifford the Big Red Dog? Now, the first 30 episodes of season 3 will air when John Ritter was still around. The last 25 will air right after he left. Not to mention, season 3 of Clifford the Big Red Dog will use the animation style from Clifford's puppy days, even though it will still have John Ritter doing the voice of Clifford the Big Red Dog. Yeah. You had a special dream? Cool. And how would you feel about this? How would you feel if in the weeks of May 5th to May 9th, 2003, PBS would air a marathon called the Big Red Sunny Day Marathon, where it's basically PBS airing Clifford the Big Red Dog and Sesame Street episodes non-stop for 5 days. Because the first 5 episodes of season 3 will air from May 5th to May 9th, 2003, which was also the same week the last 5 episodes of season 34 of Sesame Street also aired. Now, anyway, I have also made a list of PBS Kids idents used for season 3 of Clifford the Big Red Dog. So, I do have a Clifford plush. Right here. That Wishbone video, that Wishbone YTP video, or YouTube poop, was very, very hilarious. Oh, hi. Well, yeah. I also have plushes of Cleo, T-Bone, and Mac up there somewhere. But it's stored up high in the bedroom, so I can't really reach them. Woo! That means yes, he did. Well, I would say my favorite part of the YouTube poop was the WTF bomb. I'm only saying the letters because the actual word cannot be really used. So that's why I'm using those letters in place. All right, now moving on to the plots for those season 3 episodes. Now, for season 3, episode 1, Goodbye Jetta and Wish for a Fish. The air date for these episodes would be May 5th, 2003. Airing at 4:30 p.m. which is about 1 hour and a half after the Sesame Street episode 4051. So anyway, first we're going to talk about the plot for Goodbye Jetta. Let's just say that in the episode Goodbye Jetta, it starts out as a normal school day at Birdwell Island. But then, woof, 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 he really enjoys it, HuskyDog88. But, so anyway, let's just say that in the episode Goodbye Jetta, it starts out as a normal day at Birdwell Island at school. Then everything starts changing when Jetta makes an announcement that she is moving away from Birdwell Island to a different island. And Emily, Elizabeth, and Charlie are sad by that news. And then afterwards, Clifford makes a shocking secret and bursts into tears. And then while Clifford bursts into tears, he tells a shocking secret to Emily Elizabeth that he can now talk to humans. And he explains that the reason why he only talked to dogs in the past and not to humans was because that he and the other dogs would think that if Clifford were to talk to humans, that the humans would scream and run away from them and not love the dogs anymore. That's why you don't hear Clifford speaking to humans in the first 2 seasons. And then, when Clifford talks to Jetta, Jetta is like, what in the world is going on? And then, at first, Jetta thinks that she's dreaming. But then Jetta is like, I take it back. I am not dreaming. And then he faints at the sight of Clifford talking to him. And then she faints at the sight of Clifford talking to her. And then afterwards, Clifford gets to talk to Mr. Bleakman. And then when he hears when Mr. Bleakman hears Clifford actually talk, he gets horrified and screams and bursts into tears crying, saying that he is afraid of Clifford. And then, of course, after that, Clifford talks to Charlie, and then talks to Baz, and then talks to Mary, and then talks to Emily Elizabeth. And then Mr. Cook arrives. He's voiced by Tom Kenny, who does the voice of SpongeBob SquarePants, who is Steven's dad. And he says that Steven will be moving into Birdwell Island, taking Jetta's place. I guess you could say that. Well, he's not afraid of dogs, but he's afraid of dogs that talk. So I guess you could say Mr. Bleakman had schizophrenia. Yes, Mark Rendell, who is the voice of Arthur Reed in season 7 and 8 of Arthur, will voice Steven in season 3. And as for who voices Charlie, Jason Swimer does the voice of Charlie in season 3. And this is the only season that he does the voice of Charlie before a Jamaican actor replaces him. And as for Vaz, Alex Hood, who does the voice of the Brain from season 7 and 9 of Arthur, would voice Vaz this season. And this would be the only season where Alex Hood voices Vaz before Ada Ortega, who voiced Enrique in Dragon Tales, would replace him. Well, he kind of sounds kind of similar in a way to Gary Gray's Charlie voice from season 1, so, but a little bit higher in pitch, but anyway, that's his only season before a Jamaican actor replaces him. Let's just say they couldn't find a Jamaican actor to play Charlie at this point, so they had to hire someone random to do it. Same goes for Vaz. And then after Mr. Cook makes the announcement that Stephen is moving to Birdwell Island, Emily Elizabeth says that Clifford made a shocking secret. Yes, Ogie Banks III will voice him in season 4. And then after Mr. Cook makes the announcement that Stephen is moving to Birdwell Island, Emily Elizabeth tells Mr. Cook that Clifford has made a shocking secret that he could finally talk to humans. And then Emily Elizabeth shows this as an example. And then when Emily Elizabeth goes over to Cleo and asks for like tummy yummies, that's when Cleo says, "Oh yes, please, Emily Elizabeth," instead of just going ruff, ruff, ruff. And then his dog Jeffy is of course voiced. Stephen's dad Jeffy is voiced by Daniel Brochu, who does the voice of Buster Baxter. And this would be one of Mac's 3 appearances in season 3. The others being like Happy Birthday Stephen and of course The Missing Key. And then, of course, after that, though, they are back at school, and Mrs. Carrington makes an announcement that Jetta has moved away to Fun Island. But afterwards, there's this one scene before that. And then, of course, this one scene before that, Emily Elizabeth assumes that Stephen will be just like Jetta just because Stephen is her cousin. But then Clifford scolds Emily Elizabeth saying that it's not nice to judge people about the way they look. And he's like, how would you like it if somebody judged you about the way you looked? It's kind of like the episode Wedding Bell Blues in a way. But then it turns out Stephen is actually a nice kid, despite being Jetta's cousin. And then after that, they go back to school. Miss Carrington announces that Jetta has moved away to Fun Island, causing Clifford and Emily Elizabeth to both burst into tears, crying. And then, of course, Emily Elizabeth says that she's sad that Jetta's moved away and that she'll never see her again, but then realizes that on the bright side, she's kind of done with her because she can be very snobby. And then Mrs. Carrington says, good point. And then he announces that Stephen will take Jetta's place. And then Emily Elizabeth apologizes for judging on Stephen. And then, of course, Emily Elizabeth, Charlie, and then, of course, Emily Elizabeth, Charlie, his dad Samuel, and even T-Bone burst out laughing. And then for Wish for a Fish, let's just say that in the episode Wish for a Fish, Mary sees that lots of kids are having pets, but then Mary is a little disappointed and sad that she doesn't have a pet. So she wishes that she could get a pet from the pet store. She's not sure what pet she would like, but then she finds something really interesting after seeing a goldfish at a desk. And that's when Mary decides that she wants to get a goldfish as a pet. And then, of course, Clifford, Cleo, T-Bone, Jeffy all congratulate Mary for getting a pet, along with Emily, Elizabeth, Charlie, Stephen, and Vaz. And then after that, it's show and tell, and Mary presents her pet goldfish for show and tell. And then, of course, Charlie asks a silly question, which is, how much does a singing fish work? And then Emily makes a bet saying that she loves the fish so much that it splashed Mary in the face. And sure enough, the goldfish does splash Mary in. And sure enough, the fish does splash Mary in the face and Stephen. And both Mary and Stephen burst out laughing. That's how Wish for a Fish would end. And as for the PBS Kids ident for this episode, I'd go for the 2002 PBS Kids Fishbowl ident, where Dash looks inside of a fishbowl, imagines himself as an orange goldfish, and then gets eaten by Dot as a green fish. Now, unlike Season 2, which had the fishbowl ident use no URL, and the Snow Globe one having the URL, Season 3 of Clifford the Big Red Dog, on the other hand, will have both the fishbowl and Snow Globe idents to have no URL at all. And then, now we go into the plot for Season 3, Episode 2, Snow Day and Clifford the Skiing Dog. We're going to start with Snow Day, Episode 2A. Let's just say Emily Elizabeth is getting ready for school. Emily Elizabeth and her friends are getting ready for school, but then they find out the window that school has been closed due to a heavy snowstorm. So that's why a snow day is happening at Birdwell Island. And then, of course, they do lots of fun stuff in the snow. They build a snowman. They throw snowballs at each other, have a snowball fight. And, of course, Clifford, Cleo, and T-Bone join in the fun, along with Jeffy. And the dogs make snow angels. Oh, and I wanted to tell you the Speckle story for the episodes Goodbye, Jetta, and Wish for a Fish. The Speckle story would be Speckle and the Wishing Star. Anyway, back to Snow Day. So basically, the humans are making a snowman and then having a snowball fight. And then Clifford, Cleo, T-Bone, and Jeffy are making snow angels. And for some reason, Vaz is absent in this episode. And in Clifford the Skiing Dog. But Charlie is in this episode. And of course, they are making snowball fights, and then later on, they go back inside, have some hot chocolate, And then Emily Elizabeth hopes that school opens the next day. And then Steven goes to sleep, and then he wakes up to find that it's another snow day, and the humans and dogs are throwing snowballs at each other, and thus it ends the episode. And now for Clifford the Skiing Dog. Now pay close attention to this one, because Clifford the Skiing Dog is basically a winter version of the episode Topsy-Turvy Day. But unlike the episode Topsy-Turvy Day, which had Jetta being a complete jerk to Clifford and yelling at him, Steven, on the other hand, is not like that. He is confident that Clifford will be able to ski by himself eventually, but tells him, let's just say Vaz was absent because he caught a bad cold. Which Charlie says to Vaz, which Charlie says to Emily Elizabeth, that Vaz could not come to Winter Topsy-Turvy Day because he was sick with a cold. And that's why Vaz is absent in Clifford the Skiing Dog. And then anyway, back to the plot. Clifford the Skiing Dog is basically a winter version of Topsy-Turvy Day, where instead of Jetta being a complete jerk to Clifford and yelling at him, it's Steven who is very nice throughout the entire episode. He is confident that Clifford will learn to ski for the very first on his own sometime, and it takes a few tries. Steven coaches Clifford and helps Clifford go down to ski for the first few times in the skiing lesson. But then Clifford is finally able to go skiing all by himself without any help from Steven successfully. And then after that, Clifford is skiing on the mountain while Cleo is having a conversation with him. And then after that, that's when T-Bone comes in and has a conversation with Clifford. And then Jeffy does it. And then Steven's grandfather, Martin Cook, voiced by Walter Massey, is proud of Steven for doing great at this, for teaching Clifford how to do a skiing lesson, and they're at their lunch break in that part of the episode. And then after lunch, Clifford goes back up the mountains and goes skiing again, having more fun along the way. And then after that, he realizes that it's great to go outside and explore the outdoors instead of staying in the doghouse all the time. And then Clifford and his friends race over to the finish line. And then Emily says to Clifford how skiing was. And then Clifford laughs and says that was great. And then Emily remarks that for having fun in the snow like that, they should call Clifford the skiing master dog of the winter season, causing Steven to laugh and the dogs to bark. And then Emily Elizabeth says, "Great job, Clifford," and then he barks, ending the episode. Now, for the Speckle story I chose for the episode Snow Day and Clifford the Skiing Dog, I chose Speckle and the Wintry Summer. What do you think? Now, for the previous kids' idents for season 3, episode 2, Snow Day and Clifford the Skiing Dog, it's going to use the 2002 PBS Kids Snow Globe ident, where Dash the boy is ice skating in an ice rink. Then he feels the ground shake, and then it is later revealed that he is inside a snow globe, which Dot the girl is holding, with Dot having a blue-colored skin instead of the usual lime green. All right, now for the plot for Season 3, Episode 3, which is Jeffy's missing blanket and Clifford versus Jeffy. Now, let's say for Jeffy's missing blanket, Jeffy goes to sleep, and he receives a special blanket that he got for his birthday back in July. And then, of course, he goes to sleep, and then when he wakes up, he finds that his blanket is missing, and he is very hysterical about it. He is very scared, thinking that he'll never see his blanket again, and he even starts crying a few times because he really misses it and wants it back as fast as he can. And then later on, they find out that it was Mr. Bleakman that took Jeffy's blanket, and Clifford, Cleo, and T-Bone tell Mr. Bleakman that the blanket was very special to Jeffy, and he apologizes, and he kindly gives the blanket back to Jeffy because he didn't know that it was very special for him. Oh, I'm doing great moving Game Over 98. But anyway, after Mr. Bleakman gives the blanket back to him, and by the way, Jeffy is the one that forgives Mr. Bleakman for taking it, even though Jeffy was really worried about it. Then, of course, Jeffy thanks everyone for the blanket getting back, and then Jeffy licks Steven and laughs, and it ends the episode. Now, for the episode Clifford versus Jeffy, it's basically Basketball Stories Part 2. We're basically it is basketball week at Birdwell Island, and Skyscraper Jackson is preparing for a basketball tournament. And they go to the same location from the Basketball Stories episode, and this time the dogs get to have fun and play basketball with the humans. And they actually get to play basketball itself. Whereas in the episode Basketball Stories, it was just stories about a basketball game. Whereas in Clifford versus Jeffy, they actually get to play basketball. And then, of course, the Birdwell, the Island Sprouts, and the Island Giants team up with each other, hope to see who would beat them. And then it turns out that Clifford is part of the Island Giants, while Jeffy is part of the Island Sprouts. Well, actually, Jeffy and Clifford are the Island Giants, and Steven and stuff that's the Island Sprouts. But then, of course, Jeffy is the one that actually wins the basketball game, and Clifford congratulates Jeffy for winning in the basketball game. And then after that, after Clifford congratulates them, Steven's dad tells Jeffy that he is welcome to play basketball with Skyscraper Jackson anytime, and that he can't wait to see them in future basketball games. And then after that, Clifford even agrees, and he congratulates Jeffy, and then all the dogs start laughing. And it ends that episode. Now, for Jeffy's Missing Blanket and Clifford versus Jeffy, it's going to use the 2000. It's going to use the Speckle story, Speckle and the Disappearing Cookie, because I thought that story would work, because in Jeffy's Missing Blanket, Jeffy has to figure out what caused his blanket to disappear, his star-shaped astronaut blanket. And then after that, and of course for the PBS Kids ident for Jeffy's Missing Blanket and Clifford versus Jeffy, it's going to use the 2000 PBS Kids Dot transformation ident, where Dot the girl transforms into a tiger, octopus, and astronaut. All right, now we get into season 3, episode 4, which is The Musicians of Birdwell and T-Bone's favorite book. By the way, what were your thoughts on the plot for the episode Clifford versus Jeffy? Anyway, season 3, episode 4, The Musicians of Birdwell and T-Bone's favorite book. I also want to mention that beginning with season 3, Ray Fabi, who is the Arthur music composer, composes music for Clifford the Big Red Dog and joins in the fun with Mark Mothersbach and Josh Mansell. Because in season 3, that's when Arthur music composer Ray Fabi joins in with Mark Mothersbach and Josh Mansell. Yes, we could have Clifford as the mascot for the group. And of course, season 3, episode 4, The Musicians of Birdwell and T-Bone's favorite book. First, we're going to talk about The Musicians of Birdwell. Now, for The Musicians of Birdwell, let's just say that there's a concert at Birdwell Island coming next week. And so and they're preparing for it. And so they take a trip to the Birdwell Island instrument shop. I mentioned this before, but Jeffy is an orange Siberian Husky. Jeffy is an orange Siberian Husky. No, I don't think there's any bullying involved in Clifford episodes. Unless you count Jetta being a jerk to Clifford in Topsy-Turvy Day, then yes. So Jeffy is an orange Siberian Husky. And also, for the Musicians of Birdwell, concert day would be coming up in a week, and Clifford and his friends take a trip to the instrument store. And on the way to the instrument store, all the dogs find different instruments. Cleo gets a flute. T-Bone gets a trombone. Get it? T-Bone, trombone. That could work for T-Bone to play the trombone. Or should I say T-Bone Bulldog playing T-Bone brass instrument. Get it? T-Bone, T-Bone. Or T-Bone playing trombone. And then, of course, And then, of course, the opening theme for Clifford the Big Red Dog Season 3, I know it has Gray DeLisle and Cameron Clark singing it, but I couldn't really find them singing, so there are some kids singing along with them in that intro. And then, of course, Cleo plays the flute, T-Bone plays the trombone, and Jeffy plays the drums. A toy, like a drum. Jeffy would be the one playing the drum, and of course, and then, but then after the dogs find their instruments, Clifford can't think of what musical instrument he would like to play. So he tries other options. So they try to think of options to let Clifford be part of a band. But then Clifford finds a musical instrument that astonishes him and makes him be part of a band. He finds a really big, really low tuba. And then when Clifford sees that there is a tuba at the instrument store, that's when Clifford finally decides that he wants to be part of the band. So he's the one that decides that he wants to play the tuba since he's big and red, and tubas are big and low. And then after that, they play certain songs, and Clifford even breaks the fourth wall playing his signature theme on the tuba. And then, of course, they go outside, and the kids sing the song Dreams Can Come True from the episode Fan Mail. Courtney Amber also appears in this episode, but she only sings in that episode as it's recycled singing audio from the episode Fan Mail. So anyway, the kids would be singing Dreams Can Come True in The Musicians of Birdwell, while the dogs play along with their musical instrument. And then after the kids sing Dreams Can Come True with the dogs playing the song along with their musical instruments, Emily Elizabeth congratulates Clifford, and he says that the tuba sounded absolutely amazing, quote unquote. That's what Jetta usually says, but Emily Elizabeth says it here. And then Cleo admits that the tuba playing was really awesome, and then she wonders what the surprise Emily Elizabeth is going to give them. And then, of course, Emily Elizabeth gives Clifford, Cleo, T-Bone, and Jeffy a bowl of tummy yummies as a reward for participating in a song activity. And then Emily Elizabeth walks away laughing, and the dogs munch on their tummy yummies, ending the episode. Now, and then for T-Bone's favorite book, we're going to say that T-Bone is looking for a book. And then, of course, T-Bone finds a great book about Harry the Dirty Dog. T-Bone then checks it out, and then Clifford reads the story of Harry the Dirty Dog. And then after Clifford reads Harry the Dirty Dog, that is when T-Bone decides to make his own book or put on a play based off of Harry the Dirty Dog. And then T-Bone is the one that winds up being the dirty dog himself, and then he gets himself a bath. And then after that is when and then after T-Bone gets a bath, that's when T-Bone looks at his new book he created, and Clifford and Cleo leave the scene while Jeffy keeps T-Bone company, and they both enjoy looking at the good book, having fun together and laughing. Thus, the episode ends. And the Speckle story that I would choose for these episodes would be Speckle and the Music Makers. And for the PBS Kids ident, I'm going to have that one use. Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah, what? Yeah, Wi-Fi can be a big problem sometimes. But anyway, the Speckle story that I would choose for the Musicians of Birdwell and T-Bone's favorite book are Speckle and the Music Makers. And the PBS Kids ident that I would choose for the Musicians of Birdwell and T-Bone's favorite book, well, we were just about to mention the Speckle stories for the Musicians of Birdwell and T-Bone's favorite book. But in case you want to hear the ending of T-Bone's favorite book, anyway, after T-Bone gets a bath, T-Bone then looks at his favorite book that they did a play on, and Clifford and Cleo leave the scene. And then after Clifford and Cleo leave the scene, Jeffy keeps T-Bone company, and he looks at the book with T-Bone, and thus they have a good time laughing, and it ends the episode. Now, for the Speckle stories, like I said before, Speckle and the Music Makers. As for the PBS Kids ident, I'm going to have the Musicians of Birdwell and T-Bone's favorite book use the 1999 PBS Kids Dot ident, where Dot the girl runs up to the screen, but it will have the audio from the 2000 PBS Kids Dash Transformation ident for some reason. Because there's like a picture of a caveman at the library in one scene of T-Bone's favorite book. Now we go on to Season 3, Episode 5. Clifford Make-Believes and Jeffy in the Cave. Now, Clifford Make-Believes is basically a mix of the episodes Flood of Imagination and Clifford the Pirate King. Not to mention, Clifford Make-Believes will also mark Julie and Gordon and Thomas's first appearances. So, Clifford Make-Believes let's just say that it starts out on a day at Birdwell Island, and then Clifford continues that pirate adventure from the episode Clifford the Pirate King, except Stephen is the one that takes place of Jetta, and of course, Julie will actually be the unknown red-haired girl. Gordon is another Labrador, just like Clifford. Thomas will be a green greyhound. And he will be one of the villains in Clifford the Big Red Dog. Thomas will be one of the villains. Gordon actually belongs to Julie. Oh, and Thomas will actually belong to Miss Carrington. Yep, that's right. Thomas is, in fact, a green version of Mac, except that his eyes are drawn in a way that makes him look more evil. So anyway, let's say Clifford and the gang continue the pirate adventure from the episode Clifford the Pirate King. They're like digging for treasure. Not to mention, Barry the treasure dog appears, and he is voiced by Clancy Brown, who does the voice of Mr. Krabs in SpongeBob SquarePants. And he is a hound that has an eye patch in one of his eyes. Yes, Jason Mikas does the voice of Thomas. Ty Olsson will be the voice of Gordon, because Gordon and Orr sound very, very similar. And as for the voice of Julie, and you want to know what Julie is? Julie will actually be the unknown background kid with red hair from the season 1 episode, My Best Friend, and some episodes like Wedding Bell Blues, etc., etc. Except for season 3, this will be the first time that she actually speaks, and she will be voiced by Andrea Livman, who does the voice of Emmy in Dragon Tales and Pinkie Pie and Fluttershy from My Little Pony. Then, of course, yes, not to mention, Chloe will be another dog that Julie owns. Yes. I'm not a brony, but I have heard of Andrea Livman. Whenever I hear of Andrea Livman doing Pinkie Pie, it kind of reminds me of watching Dragon Tales again. After this stream, I'm probably going to be taking a break. So today will be the last stream for a while. And also, so anyway, Clifford Make-Believes. They continue the pirate adventure. Barry the treasure dog arrives. He is not as big as Clifford, but not as small either. He's a little bit smaller than Clifford, but he almost has the same eye color as Clifford. Yes, let's just say that Julie got him the same place Emily got Clifford. So anyway. Gordon is a green Labrador. Like a green version of Clifford, except just a little bit smaller. So anyway, they continue their pirate adventure from Clifford the Pirate King and Clifford Make-Believes. Barry the Treasure Dog tags along, and he tells make-believe pirate stories. Yes, a green Clifford dog. So Barry the Treasure Dog comes around when they're digging for treasure from Clifford the Pirate King, and Barry tells Clifford cool pirate stories. And then Clifford, Cleo, T-Bone, and Jeffy, along with all the kids, they imagine that they are in the story digging for treasure. And then after that long story ends, they make believe themselves and imagine they're in the story. And then after they're done imagining, they go on a treasure scavenger hunt. And then after the treasure scavenger hunt, Barry congratulates Clifford for saying that was a great treasure scavenger hunt. And then Barry would say the phrase, "Am I right or am I right?" from Led Us Stray. And then he says, "I am absolutely positively right." And then all the dogs and the humans would burst out laughing, ending the episode. Barry is about the same size as Mac. No. About the same size as about a slightly smaller version of Clifford, just about the same size as Gordon, Barry the Treasure Dog. But he would have an eye patch on his head. Eye patch in his eye. Now for the plot of Jeffy and the Cave. Jeffy in the Cave. Basically, Jeffy goes to the library to pick out a book about prehistoric times. About cavemen and dinosaurs and all kinds of prehistoric life. Then he likes the book so much that he decides to find out what it would be like to go to a cave, just like prehistoric times. He thinks the cave will be pretty cool. Unfortunately, after going to the cave, he hears some strange noises coming in the cave. And he thinks that there are monsters in the cave. It's kind of like Jeffy's version of nothing to fear of nothing to fur, but fur itself in a way. But then Clifford, Cleo, and T-Bone reassured Jeffy that there's nothing really scary in the cave. It's just those noises that keep scaring Jeffy. And then T-Bone reminds Jeffy of the time that he used to be scared of monsters because he was watching a monster movie, which leads to a flashback from the episode Nothing to Fur But Fur Itself. And then after that, Jeffy bravely explores more of the cave, despite hearing the strange noises. And then, after that, Clifford congratulates Jeffy for being brave of going to the cave, and that they should call Jeffy the Brave Orange Dog, because he is the bravest dog on Birdwell Island. And then they all walk back home to Birdwell Island and start laughing, and it ends the episode. And then after that, the episode ends. Basically, I'm going to have the speckle stories for Clifford make-believes and Jeffy in the cave to be Speckle and the pirate ship. And for the PBS Kids ident for the episodes Clifford make-believes and Jeffy's and the cave, I'm happy to report that these episodes, Clifford make-believes and Jeffy in the cave, will use the 2000 PBS Kids Dash transformation ident, where Dash the boy transforms into a caveman, scuba diver, and robot. Now, we go into Season 3, Episode 6, Sleeping Jeffy and Concert Day at Birdwell Island. Now, for Concert Day at Birdwell Island, let's just say it takes place about 6 days after the events of... Let's just say it takes place a week after the events of the musicians of Birdwell. And Clifford, Cleo, and T-Bone are practicing for the band concert that the dogs are going to perform in for Concert Day at Birdwell Island. All of a sudden, Jeffy arrives, and Jeffy accidentally loses his balance and falls into a pile of mud after running too close to the screen. And then Clifford scolds Jeffy to watch where he is going. And then after they watch where he is going, after Clifford tells Jeffy to watch where he's going, Clifford is relieved that none of the musical instruments were broken. So they perform for the concert, and then they all go to the Birdwell Island school they attend, where they go to the same stage from the episode Stage Struck from Season 2. In there, the kids get to perform different songs. Emily Elizabeth would perform the song Shells on the Beach from the 2002 PC game Musical Memory Games. And then after that, Charlie would perform the song The Rolling Waves, which is a slightly different recording than the one from the 2002 PC game Musical Memory Games. Then Baz sings the song Move Your Feet to the Mambo in place of Jetta, because I think Baz would be more suited in singing that song. And then after that, that's when Mary performs the song Dreams Can Come True, just like she did in the episode Stage Struck. But unlike that episode, Stage Struck, where Mary was singing the song despite trying to overcome her stage fright, Mary sings Dreams Can Come True more confidently and doesn't even get scared in the slightest in Concert Day at Birdwell Island. And then after Mary performs his song, let's just say Steven performs a song right after Baz before Mary, and Steven will perform, a song about going to the library and stuff. About going to the library and checking out books. And then after that, that's when Mary sings the song Dreams Can Come True, just like in the episode Stage Struck. But again... Oh, wait a minute. Shouldn't I be talking about Sleeping Jeffy first? It's okay. We'll do that after Concert Day at Birdwell Island, because I already got through it, and it would be kind of silly to say the plot over and over again. But anyway, after Steven performs the song, that's when Mary would sing Dreams Can Come True. But unlike the episode Stage Struck, where Mary sang it despite still being afraid of performing and getting stage fright, In Concert Day at Birdwell Island, Mary sings this song with full-on confidence, and she doesn't even get scared in the slightest in Concert Day at Birdwell Island. She sings it more confidently and with way more energy in a way. Then after that, the dogs get to perform for the band. And the song they perform from the band will actually be recycled background music from the end of the season 1 episode Clifford on Parade. And then after that, Emily Elizabeth congratulates Clifford and the gang, and that she didn't expect to see a big dog like Clifford play a big tuba. And then Mrs. Carrington says that Clifford is amazing, and then Clifford licks Emily Elizabeth a whole lot, causing Emily Elizabeth to laugh repeatedly, and the episode ends. All right. Now we can talk about Sleeping Jeffy. So, even though I meant to cover Concert Day at Birdwell Island after Sleeping Jeffy, but I will talk about Sleeping Jeffy now since I already explained about Concert Day at Birdwell Island. So for Sleeping Jeffy, let's just say that Jeffy is so excited about going to Emily Elizabeth's birthday party that he cannot fall asleep. No matter how many times he tries to fall asleep, he just can't. So Clifford, Cleo, and T-Bone try to think of ways to help Jeffy get to sleep. At first, Clifford tries reading a bedtime story to Jeffy, but that doesn't work. Then Mary tries singing a song called Brahms' Lullaby. And then Jeffy thinks of an idea to sleep to his favorite Sleepy Time album, and that is what finally puts Jeffy to sleep. And as a result, Jeffy is too tired to go to Emily Elizabeth's birthday party due to a lack of sleep that he got. So Jeffy keeps falling asleep while Clifford, Cleo, and T-Bone go to Emily Elizabeth's birthday party, and they play really fun games like Pin the Tail on the Dog, which is basically a Clifford version of Pin the Tail on the Donkey. And then after that, they go swimming in the pool, which is the exact same pool from the episode The Best Party Ever, with the water slide intact. And then they go outside, and Emily Elizabeth enjoys having birthday cake. Unfortunately, Emily Elizabeth is eating chocolate cake, so the dogs can't really eat it. But Emily Elizabeth's mom does make the dogs a strawberry birthday cake, even though Clifford does eat the vanilla cake in Happy Birthday Clifford and in Happy Birthday Stephen as well. And then after the fun and games, Clifford is finally exhausted, saying that he's ready to go back home to his doghouse and take a nap. And go to sleep, I should say. And then after that, Clifford finally gets... I think the vanilla extract is what made the vanilla a little toxic. So maybe a little less vanilla extract for the dogs for those episodes. But anyway, after Clifford and the gang have a lot of fun and games at Emily Elizabeth's birthday party, Clifford is finally exhausted, and he decides to go back to his doghouse to go to sleep, and Jeffy keeps him company. And then Clifford explains that tomorrow Jeffy will take him to the park and that they'll have so much fun there, but for now, it would be bedtime. And then he says goodnight to Jeffy, and the dogs drift off to sleep peacefully, ending the episode. So what were your thoughts on the plot for the episode Sleeping Jeffy? Because despite the episode being called Sleeping Jeffy, it doesn't really just focus on Jeffy falling asleep. There are lots of subplots to this episode, like, Emily Elizabeth's birthday happening, and Clifford, Cleo, and T-Bone joining in on the birthday fun. This next one is, of course, this next one will be, all right, now for the Speckle story that I'll pick for Sleeping Jeffy and Concert Day at Birdwell Island, it's Speckle and the Slumber Party. And as for the PBS Kids ident for the episodes Sleeping Jeffy and Concert Day at Birdwell Island, those episodes are going to use the 1999 PBS Kids ident with Dot the girl running up to the screen. But unlike the Musicians of Birdwell and T-Bone's favorite book, which had the 2000 Dash transformation audio playing over it, Sleeping Jeffy and Concert Day at Birdwell Island will have the 1999 Dot audio playing over the Dot ident. In other words, the Dot ident will use the correct audio. Now for Season 3, Episode 7, Steven's School Project and T-Bone's Halloween Surprise. So, for Steven's School Project, let's just say Steven is working hard to make a project for school. And Steven comes up with a great idea talking about different groups of food and what food is good to eat and what food is not good to eat. In other words, junk food. So, it's basically like the Clifford version of the art for episode Desert Island Dish, in a way. So anyway, Steven makes a project on his computer for school, and he comes up with a great project talking about different groups of food and about what food is good to eat and what food is not good to eat. So he comes up with many slideshows to talk about different foods The first section he talks about is vegetables. This would have Steven talking about different groups of food. The first one he talks about is vegetables. And of course, the vegetables that Steven chooses for the project are carrots, green beans, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, red peppers, and of course, tomatoes. Even though tomatoes are not really a vegetable, but they're a fruit, Steven chooses it in the vegetables section. Oh, and cucumber. And then for the fruit section, Steven picks apples, oranges, bananas, strawberries, blueberries, grapes, and of course, lemons. And then for meat and protein, and then for dairy, he would choose milk and cheese. And then for meat, he would choose hot dogs and meatballs and steak. And then for fish, he would choose salmon and tuna for fish. And then for the junk food category, in other words, the things not to eat, they would be pizza, French fries, cookies, donuts, and of course, cinnamon rolls. And then he completes the project at night and then presents the project the next morning at school, in which Stephen is partnered with Emily Elizabeth, and Miss Carrington is so impressed with the report that he gives both Emily Elizabeth and Stephen an A+ for the hard work on the project. And yes, Phil Nye, the science guy, will be the guest star in that Clifford episode, even though he is not credited in the end credits for some reason. And then for T-Bone's Halloween surprise, this is basically T-Bone's take on the episode Cleo's Valentine surprise. So for T-Bone's Halloween surprise, let's just say that T-Bone is working hard to get Valentine's gifts for Clifford and Cleo, but he is really disappointed when he doesn't get a big gift in return, until Cleo reminds him of the time that she was jealous for the same reason when Cleo didn't get her Valentine's surprise in return, which leads to a flashback from that episode. Then KC appears, and he helps T-Bone look for great Halloween surprises. Not to mention Spookly, the Halloween dog, appears in this episode, and he is voiced by Alec Baldwin. And he is the one that says to never give up hope for Halloween surprises. Then after that, Spookly, the Halloween dog, tells the story. Then after that, Cleo requests Spookly to tell them a story about Whiffy the skunk ghost again, in which Spookly tells the story of Whiffy the skunk ghost again. And then this time, Cleo does not trick T-Bone and Clifford because she already learned this lesson. Because after listening to the story a second time, Cleo just moves on and is like, wow, what a great story. And then after that, Clifford is impressed to find out that Cleo did not trick him or T-Bone anymore, despite hearing Whippy the skunk ghost story again. And then Sheriff Lewis comes along, saying that it was true Halloween spirit and that he is very proud of T-Bone for giving Clifford and Cleo some Valentine's Day, some Halloween gifts without giving up. And in this episode, Sheriff Lewis is not voiced by Nick Jameson because let's just say he was unavailable So instead, Michael Brandon will voice Sheriff Lewis in that episode. But this is the only instance where this happens. Thus, the episode T-Bone's Halloween Surprise ends. Now, for the Speckle story, I would choose Speckle and the Costume Party for Steven's School Project and T-Bone's Halloween Surprise. Michael Brandon was the Thomas and Friends narrator for seasons 7 through 16 in the United States of Thomas and Friends. In the United States. All right. Now, for the PBS Kids idents for Steven's School Project and T-Bone's Halloween Surprise, it would have the PBS Kids Fishbowl ident from 2002, where Dash looks inside of a fishbowl, imagines himself as an orange goldfish, and then getting eaten by Dot. Now, for Season 3, Episode 8. Oh, and I wanted to mention that for Steven's School Project, after Miss Carrington gives Emily, Elizabeth, and Steven an A+, she rewards Emily, Elizabeth, and Steven by giving them salmon and French fries. All right, now for Season 3, Episode 8, The Wizard of Dogs, which is a parody of The Wizard of Oz. In this episode, Emily Elizabeth is given the part of Dorothy, and then Clifford is given the part of Toto. Steven plays the wizard, Vaz plays the Tin Man, Charlie plays the Scarecrow, Mr. Bleakman plays the Cowardly Lion in this episode, and Jetta plays the Wicked Witch. Well, true. Maybe you'll have T-Bone be Toto. T-Bone will be... All right. Yeah, T-Bone. I'll have T-Bone be Toto. And what did you think of Mr. Bleakman playing the Cowardly Lion, with Charlie being the Scarecrow and Baz being the Tin Man? And then, of course, Julie will be the narrator. And then afterwards, what did you think of Mr. Bleakman playing the lion? That could have worked really well. And then after they complete the play, Miss Carrington rewards the kids and dogs by taking them out to recess early, and they play basketball, ending the episode. Now for Cleo in Wonderland. For Cleo in Wonderland, it takes place a few hours after the event of The Wizard of Dogs, because of Miss Carrington announces that there will be 2 plays on stage at Birdwell Island. And then after that, and then of course Cleo is chosen the part to be Alice, which at first confuses Cleo because she was expecting Emily Elizabeth to play Alice instead of Cleo. But then Clifford assures her that it's okay to be flexible. I mean, Cleo doesn't complain about her or anything. He's just confused. It's like, huh? Why do I get to play Alice? And he's like, that doesn't make any sense. And then Clifford is like, I know it doesn't, Cleo. I know it doesn't, Cleo, but you'll have to be flexible. So Cleo just moves on. Cleo gets to play the part of Alice. Jeffy is the one that gets to play the March Hare. And Clifford is the one that plays the Cheshire Cat. In other words, they call it the Cheshire Dog this time. And then, of course, Emily. And then, of course, Charlie and Vaz will play Tweedledee and Tweedledum. Julie is once again the narrator. And Emily Elizabeth. And then, of course, Jetta plays the evil Queen of Hearts. Going off with their head. And then after that, after the play is over, Clifford cheers Cleo, saying that she makes a great Alice and Clifford makes a Cheshire Cat. And then Clifford says, hip hip hooray, and then Cleo thanks him, and it ends the episode. And as for the Speckle story that I'll pick, Speckle and the Really Good Book will be the story for The Wizard of Dogs and Cleo in Wonderland. And the PBS Kids ident I'll choose is the 1999 PBS Kids Dash ident, where Dash, the boy, is thinking about something. Now, we get into the first full-length episode that is not split into two parts. That is not split into two halves of episodes, I meant to say. Clifford visits 8 simple rules. This would be an episode that is one. And then Clifford visits 8 simple rules will be an episode that is 1 hour and a half. A 2-part 90-minute episode.
James, here is your reminder. Go to bed. James, here is your reminder. Go to bed.
Never mind that, folks. That was just my Alexa speaking. And then, of course, for Clifford Visits 8 Simple Rules, this will have the most interesting plot. All right, so Clifford Visits 8 Simple Rules will have an interesting plot. Emily Elizabeth is about to turn on the TV when all of a sudden she sees a show and hears Clifford's voice in a live action show. He was like, wait a minute, is Clifford in 8 Simple Rules? It can't be. And then Clifford is like, let me see. Huh? You're right. I do sound like that. And then after Clifford hears it, Clifford decides to find out for himself, and he decides to take a trip away from Birdwell Island to a live-action world of 8 simple rules, where Paul Hennessy is currently making dinner for Bridget and Carrie. Then Clifford magically appears, and Clifford says, "What a surprise to see you." And then Paul is like, "And what a surprise to see you." And then Clifford and Paul are having conversations, and they're thinking out why their voices sound exactly the same. Well, let's just say that they use magic dog spray to take Clifford to a different place. Anyway, Clifford and Paul are having conversations, and they're like, well, let's just say Emily Elizabeth pours like a glass of water and then adds a little bit of sparkling fruit to it. That's what causes Clifford's magic spray works. Yeah. And then after Clifford and Paul are having their conversations, Bridget appears, and he's like, "What's this dog doing here? And why does he sound exactly like you? Get out of here, Clifford." And then Clifford is like, "Why? Why would you insult me like this?" Let's just say he would wish on a wishbone. That would be a better idea. Anyway, after Bridget says like, why is Clifford in here? And why does he sound exactly like you, Paul? You need to get out, Clifford. And then Clifford is like, why would you insult me like this? And then after that, that's when Paul appears, and he's like, why in the world would you make fun of Clifford just because he and I sound exactly the same? It takes place after Christmas in this episode, and then basically, after this, Clifford no, not really. I think, let's say Clifford gets the wishbone when he imagines the tummy yummy turning into a wishbone, and then he uses a magic wand to turn a tummy yummy into a wishbone. And he wishes to be at 8 simple rules. But anyway, after Clifford leaves because of Bridget making fun of Clifford, Paul asks why in the world he would make fun of Clifford. And then he punishes Bridget by making her watch the brand new Clifford the Big Red Dog videotape that Carrie got for Christmas. And that Clifford videotape, you might ask? Well, it's this VHS of Clifford that Paul Hennessy forces Bridget to watch as punishment for making fun of Clifford. And they watch it all the way through. Bridget gets grounded and then is forced to watch this. And then after that, he after Bridget gets grounded, he punishes Bridget by watching this VHS tape of Clifford the Big Red Dog, Clifford's best friends. And he also punishes Bridget by saying, "No Mickey Mouse pancakes or Donald Duck waffles for you." And then Paul Hennessy tries to put in the VCR setting, but when he does, he finds out that SpongeBob is shown on television. And he's like, "That's not it. Maybe if I change the channel, it'll work." So he does, but that doesn't work either. And it shows a little glimpse of Dragon Tales because of this. And he tries really hard to get into the VCR setting, but then he discovers there's an input button on the remote, which he clicks, and sure enough, it changes to the VCR setting. Then Paul Hennessy pops this VHS tape in, and Bridget is forced to watch it as punishment for making fun of Clifford. So all goes well until we get to the episode "The Dog Who Cried Woof," where after he sees the scene of Cleo tricking Clifford and T-Bone into thinking that there's Whippy the skunk ghost, Bridget admits that she was the one that tricked Carrie into thinking that there was a spider in Carrie's bed. And then Paul Hennessy sees it with the security camera, and he is even more angry there, and he's even angrier than ever. And he's like, "I thought watching this VHS tape would teach you a lesson, but no, that's not enough lesson to teach you." He then extends Bridget's punishment, forcing and records all of the episodes of Clifford the Big Red Dog on PBS in order to teach Bridget a lesson for real this time. And then he finds out that 2 months ago on Halloween, Bridget I was the one that wrote those. And then let's say that Paul also finds out that 2 months ago on Halloween, Bridget ruined Carrie's Halloween because Bridget framed Carrie and punished her and forced her to watch episodes of Dora the Explorer, which Carrie hated with a burning passion. Well, for Jeffy, I would have to use Buster Baxter's voice, which is currently not cloned on UberDuck as of right now, but if it does, I will use Buster's voice for Jeffy. But then, afterwards, let's just say that they found out that Carrie's Halloween was ruined by Bridget because Bridget forced Carrie to watch Dora the Explorer as punishment for throwing ice on Bridget. And then Paul explains that Carrie hated Dora the Explorer with a burning passion because every time Swiper appeared, Carrie runs away to her bedroom crying because Swiper scares her always. And that's another reason why Paul punished Bridget by recording episodes of Clifford the Big Red Dog. And then after that episode, The Dog Who Cried Woof, Clifford goes into a PBS station a PBS website to pbskids.org just to find out when Clifford the Big Red Dog will be airing. And then, about 3 months later, and then after this, anyway, after this happens, while Paul is recording episodes, every night, let's say around 4 in the afternoon, in the episode 8 Simple Rules, let's say that everybody is having dinner and there are hot dogs at the table. Clifford comes back to the scene and he smells those great hot dogs that Paul Hennessy has cooked. And then he asks Paul if he would like to eat those. And then he asks Paul if he could eat those. And then Paul says that Clifford can. Yeah, that would be funny. He's like, I've learned my lesson the stinky way. And then instead of going into the end title card, she jumps out of the stream and he's like, and you need to learn your lesson because you made fun of my friend Clifford. That is not cool. And then T-Bone jumps out of the scene. And then Jeffy. And then afterwards, it's dinner time, and Clifford and the dogs are smelling hot dogs. So the dogs ask Paul if they could have hot dogs, and Paul says that they can. And so the dogs and the humans chomp on their hot dogs for dinner. And then they listen to cool music, and then they read bedtime stories to Kaylee, which Paul Hennessy would read Carrie the Clifford book, The Dog Who Cried Woof. with Cleo and T-Bone mimicking their voices as if the book came to life. And then after that, after the bedtime story, the kids finally drift off to sleep. And then he says, and then he says that he's ready to go back to Birdwell Island. And then after Clifford goes back to Birdwell Island, Emily Elizabeth asks Clifford how the visit to 8 Simple Rules was, and then Clifford tells the story about exactly what happened. And then Clifford and Emily Elizabeth start laughing, and it ends the episode. And because this is a 1 hour and 30-minute episode, and because this is a 1 hour and 30-minute episode, it does not show any Speckle story at all because it's 1 hour and 30 minutes. Because of that long running time, it goes straight to Clifford's big ideas right after Clifford Visits 8 Simple Rules is over. And it is respect. And then, of course, the PBS Kids ident I would choose for Clifford Visits 8 Simple Rules will be the Dash transformation one because of Cleo, T-Bone, and Jeffy's transformation from television into real life. All right. Now we're going to get into Season 3, Episode 10, which is Clifford Remembers Mr. Bleakman. And what did you think of the cool plot for Clifford Visits 8 Simple Rules? Now, for Clifford Remembers Mr. Bleakman. Mr. Bleakman has been having coughing spells for a week. And Emily Elizabeth wonders why Mr. Bleakman is still coughing. And then Mrs. Bleakman takes him to the doctor, who is Dr. Roger, played by Roger Bumpus. In one of the earlier episodes like this, and Clifford goes to the dentist, Roger Bumpus is not credited for some reason. And then Dr. Roger diagnoses Mr. Bleakman, and they do some blood work on Mr. Bleakman to find out why Mr. Bleakman is still coughing. Eventually, the diagnosis comes out saying that Mr. Bleakman tested positive for lung cancer. And then Mr. Bleakman is like, huh? Cancer? It can't be. And he's like, I'm afraid it's true. And then Miss Carrington makes an announcement that Mr. Bleakman has lung cancer. And then later on, Clifford tells Cleo and T-Bone about this, and he says that Mr. Bleakman has cancer. And then Cleo says cancer, and then she rudely laughs and says, "That is the funniest thing I've ever heard." And then Clifford is shocked by what Cleo did. And he's like, "Cleo, why are you laughing at Mr. Bleakman? Seriously, it's not funny. Not funny at all. How would you like it if somebody laughed at you about your health?" Serves him right to scold Cleo for laughing at Mr. Bleakman because of Mr. Bleakman having cancer. So week by week, Mr. Bleakman is just receiving treatment at the hospital. And then about 3 months later, Mr. Bleakman finally succumbs to lung cancer. And seeing that this happened, Clifford is just heartbroken. He just can't stop crying because he knew that Mr. Bleakman was like a good neighbor to him, despite the fact that he was a little grumpy at times. And then Mrs. Bleakman comes up with a solution and makes a puppet out of Mr. Bleakman, thus immediately cheering Clifford up. He's like, "Thanks so much for giving me the Mr. Bleakman puppet." Now I can imagine what he says, even if he is away. "I feel much better now that I have friends who cheer me up whenever I'm left down as a hound dog." And ironically enough, the actor who played Mr. Bleakman also succumbed to lung cancer earlier this year. Kind of a twist, if you know what I mean. And this episode would be dedicated to Fred Rogers, who passed away from stomach cancer. And this episode also does not have a Speckle story because this will be a 2-part 30-minute episode. If it's longer than 11 minutes, then there is no Speckle story. That's how it is. And the PBS Kids ident I would choose is the dot transformation one. Because picture of Mr. Bleakman is shown in a constellation at the end of the episode. And that's why it has the PBS Kids dot transformation ident for Clifford Remembers Mr. Bleakman, because Mr. Bleakman is shown in a constellation of stars at the end of the episode. Now for Season 3, Episode 11, Clifford Goes to the Dentist and T-Bone's Tooth Problem. First, we're going to talk about the plot for Clifford Goes to the Dentist. In it, Clifford is resting in his doghouse when Emily Elizabeth reminds him that the next day is Clifford's first trip to the dentist. This really freaks Clifford out, saying that he's afraid of going to the dentist. But then he reminds him of the time he used to be scared of going to the vet in the episode An Itchy Patch, which leads to a flashback from that episode. And then Emily convinces Clifford that everything is going to be A-okay. And then, of course, Clifford tries to calm himself down to get him to stop thinking about being scared of going to the dentist. He tries, he tries making music. He tries playing tag with Clifford and T-Bone and Jeffy. He tries playing tag with Cleo, T-Bone, and Jeffy, I meant to say. And he tries playing ball with the kids. But no matter how hard he tries to not think about it, he just can't help himself. He's way too scared to go to the dentist. More shocking is that he's afraid he's going to get a cavity. But then the next day, Clifford bravely goes to the dentist, with the dentist's name being Dr. Oliver, which will be voiced by John Oliver in the UK version, while the US version will have him voiced by Michael Brandon. And Dr. Oliver examines Clifford and looks at his teeth, and they take an x-ray of Clifford's teeth to make sure that he doesn't have any cavities growing on it. And of course, later on, the x-ray results come back and Clifford tests negative for cavities. So in other words, he does not have a single cavity in sight and is perfectly healthy for a big red dog. That is after Clifford discovers that Dr. Roger was married to Dr. Din and Dr. Oliver was Dr. Roger's brother. And then Clifford says it's worth it to have dentist checkups once in a while, and then he laughs, and it ends the episode. Now, what were your thoughts on the episode Clifford goes on the plot for Clifford Goes to the Dentist? Now, for T-Bone's tooth problem, and do you think it was the right thing to do when Clifford severely scolded Cleo for laughing at Mr. Bleakman's cancer diagnosis? And he said, "How would you like it if somebody laughed at you about your health?" Now for T-Bone's tooth problem. Let's say T-Bone is enjoying a snack when suddenly he gets a very severe pain on one of his teeth. He just can't stop screaming and yowling and wincing in pain. He's like, "It hurts, Clifford, it really hurts. I don't want to go to the doctor, even though it hurts." And then Clifford says, I think I know what happened. I used to be afraid of going to the dentist last month until Emily Elizabeth assured me that everything was going to be all right. Dr. Oliver was really nice. And then T-Bone is like, "You think so?" And then Clifford is like, "I know so." And then T-Bone is still yowling in intense, severe pain. And then he's like, I'm going to take you to the doctor. And then after going to the doctor, and then while they wait at the doctor's office, Dr. Oliver calls in T-Bone's name and asks Clifford what seems to be the problem with T-Bone. And then Clifford explains that T-Bone has gotten a really, really painful cavity on one of his teeth. He's like, that's probably true. Cavities can be painful if you're not getting treated for a very, very long time. And then they do an X-ray on T-Bone, and sure enough, T-Bone tests positive for 4 cavities in his teeth. And they have to fill the cavities up to numb the pain so that T-Bone won't have to stand here suffering from the intense cavity pain. And then after doing all those fillings, Dr. Oliver says that he is sorry for that he was afraid of having pain from cavities, but that he, Dr. Oliver, the dentist of Birdwell Island, will always be there whenever there's something wrong with his teeth. And then he tells T-Bone that he'll see him again in 6 months. And then he says, see you later and take great care of your teeth. And then T-Bone laughs and jumps on Clifford, ending the episode. Now, the speckle story that I'm going to choose for Clifford Goes to the Dentist and T-Bone's Tooth Problem is, of course, Speckle and the Best Medicine. And as for the PBS Kids ident, I'm going to use the PBS Kids Fishbowl ident from 2002, where Dash looks into a fishbowl, imagines himself as an orange goldfish, and then gets eaten by Dot. And the reason why I chose that is because Dash, it gets eaten by Dot, and you need to have teeth in order to eat. That would be an interesting twist for T-Bone's tooth problem and Clifford Goes to the Dentist. Wouldn't you agree? All right, now season 3, episode 12. Oh, I made a mistake for season 3, episode 8. The Speckle story is actually Speckle in the Spiffy Yard for season 3, episode 8. For season 3, episode 12, we'll get into Cleo's missing toy and story time with Clifford. And in those episodes, Cleo's missing toy and story time with Clifford, those will have Speckle in the really good book. Anyway, for Cleo's missing toy, let's say that Cleo is having fun with her hedgehog toy when suddenly the next day her toy goes missing. And she gets hysterical and demands to know why her toy was gone. And then they look for clues. Clifford looks for clues. And of course, you know, they look for clues to find out where the hedgehog toy could have gone, and then eventually they still do not have any luck. But then, once they go over to Thomas's house or Miss Carrington's house, they found out that it was Thomas who stole Cleo's hedgehog toy. And then after this, Cleo severely scolds the yeah, it's kind of a sequel to Doggy Detectives. Yeah, and they find out after going to Miss Carrington's house that Thomas stole Cleo's hedgehog toy. And Clifford and Cleo are very, very upset with Thomas. And Clifford even says that he's lucky he's not getting punished. But if it happens again, Thomas will get punished. And then Cleo plays with her hedgehog toy with the other dogs, and everyone laughs. And then, of course, story time of Clifford. That is basically a sequel to the episode T-Bone's favorite book. In this one, Clifford makes up a make-believe story based off of the book Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. And then afterwards, Clifford makes up a different version of it called Cloudy with a Chance of Hot Dogs, which leads to one flashback from the episode Clifford on Parade with Emily, Elizabeth, and Charlie munching on hot dogs. And he continues the story of Cloudy with a Chance of Hot Dogs, where it is like Anyway, Clifford tells the story of Cloudy with a Chance of Hot Dogs, where it's basically raining hot dogs. There is a thunderstorm of cheese. There is an ice cream snow day. And of course, there is a tornado of pizza. After this, after Clifford completes the story, Cleo asks if he has time to read any more. And then Clifford says that he wishes he could, but he has to pick up Emily Elizabeth from school. Let's just say it is Clifford that is the inventor. And as for the Speckle story, yeah, Speckle in the really good book is on Cleo's Missing Toy and Storytime of Clifford. And the PBS Kids ident I'll choose for this episode is the 1999 Dash ident, where Dash the boy is thinking about something. And I chose that because in Storytime of Clifford, in Cleo's Missing Toy, Thomas has to think about his actions. Cleo is going to be Sam Sparks. And we could have, we could have Thomas be the one he says, or you can turn it off, ruin everything, and no one will ever like you. Thomas will be the guy that plays the villain in Storytime with Clifford. Yes, I have seen both films. Interestingly enough, Mark Mothersbaugh, who composed the music for the Clifford the Big Red Dog TV series, also composed the music for the 2009 film Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Did you know that? Now, we go into the season 3, episode 13, Vaz's computer problem, and Charlie helps out. Now, for Vaz's computer problem, Mrs. Carrington expects Vaz to turn in a project by tomorrow with the computer, or else he'd fail the class. And then he nervously goes home and he tries working on the project. At first, the computer will not turn on. Then he discovers that the computer was unplugged, and then it turns back on. But then another problem arises, and Vaz's computer gets infected with malware. And so the computer expert, voiced by Jeremy Irons, is the one that examines the computer problem. And then, of course, after this, after the computer problem, which is not fixed, they would find out that the internet is not on the computer. And he's like, I do not have time for this. I gotta think of a project this fast or I'll fail the class. Yes, he will. And then after this, Vaz's younger brother, Carlos, voiced by Kathleen Hurls, who does the voice of Dora the Explorer, who is 5 years old, takes Vaz to the library to check out a book about prehistoric creatures. And then he writes the projects down on paper with his own words, not plagiarizing the book, but coming up with alterations for those words. And then after this, he finally completes the project at night, goes to sleep, and then wakes up and goes back to school and shows Mr. Ratburn and then shows Miss Carrington the computer report, which was done on a piece of paper with a book due to the computer having problems. And then Miss Carrington is impressed and says that even though Vaz's computer wouldn't turn on because of the power outage, never mind. It's the internet that works. It's the power that goes out that causes. It's the power outage that causes the computer to turn off completely. And then, of course, he's nervous, like, how am I ever going to be able to get this project done in time? And he's like, I know. I'll go to the library to check out books about prehistoric creatures, since that's what I want to learn. And then after this, they go to the library, and Vaz checks out a book about prehistoric creatures, and then he writes the pages down on paper and does not plagiarize the book. He instead makes alterations for some of those words to make it more original for Vaz, especially since Miss Carrington has no tolerance on plagiarism. And then after this, Vaz completes the project, goes to sleep, and then goes back to school and turns in the project that was done on paper instead of a computer due to the power outage. And Ms. Carrington is impressed and says that even though the computer wouldn't turn on because of the power outage, she is still very impressed that she got the project to turn in on time. No, it's because Vaz accidentally keeps losing his report and has to write it again and again. That's why Miss Carrington was so strict with him. He does eventually return the project to the school, and Miss Carrington is impressed that even though the computer wouldn't turn on because of the power outage, she would still be impressed that she wrote a project based on a book about prehistoric creatures, and then rewards Vaz and everyone else with a treat. Procrastinating. That's what procrastinating. That's a word for putting it off till later. Procrastination. In other words, Vaz but this time he doesn't put it off till later. In Vaz's computer problem, but he puts it off in the episode Project Day. Yeah, the reason why Ms. Carrington was so strict with Vaz and Vaz's computer problem is because Vaz keeps accidentally losing the pieces of paper. He doesn't put it off until later. He doesn't procrastinate, but she's strict because he keeps losing it. But this time he doesn't lose it. He turns it in on time and puts it in his pocket to carry to school. And sure enough, Miss Carrington is impressed that even though the computer wouldn't turn on because of the power outage, she is still impressed that he did a report on prehistoric creatures on a piece of paper when the power was off. And then she rewards everyone with homemade cookies that she made. And everyone laughs. And even Cleo and T-Bone start laughing, even though they do not have any dialogue whatsoever. This is also the case with the sister episode. Chester V. Bill Nye will play Chester V. in Storytime with Clifford. And now for Charlie Helps Out. Let's just say that Sheriff Lewis had to go out on a very important long meeting, so he cannot take care of T-Bone until after the meeting is over. So he hires somebody else to watch over T-Bone while Sheriff Lewis is away. And sure enough, Charlie is the one that babysits T-Bone in this episode, and T-Bone plays fetch with Charlie. Charlie goes swimming with T-Bone. And then, of course, gives T-Bone dog food so that he could stay hungry without being starved. And then, of course, T-Bone and Charlie play ball with each other. And then Sheriff Lewis returns, and Clifford congratulates Charlie for babysitting T-Bone while Sheriff Lewis was away. And then Clifford rewards him by taking him swimming with Cleo and Emily Elizabeth. And then Clifford jumps into the water with a humongous splash. And then Clifford and Emily have a splash fight, ending the episode with Clifford and Emily Elizabeth laughing while splashing each other in the water. Now for the Speckle story that I'll choose, it involves well, that's true. They do have a sleepover, but the fun part comes before the sleepover happens. So after all those activities, they have a sleepover, and then Sheriff Lewis comes back. And in the Speckle story that is chosen is, I believe, a story called Speckle and the Perfect Puddle, I believe. That's where they play hopscotch, and the game gets ruined by drops of rain. No, he doesn't cry at all. He just does a little whimper before Charlie takes his mind off of him. And Kel Mitchell would strangely be uncredited in the credits for this episode, even though he would be the one that would voice T-Bone in Charlie Helps Out. But Cleo and Jeffy are absent in Charlie Helps Out. Now for the PBS Kids ident, I'm going to use the dash transformation one. Let's see. And of course, you know, ripped off the 2000 series, you mean. But yeah. Next up will be the Runaway Ball and Steven's Fishing Lessons, Season 3, Episode 14A. Now, for the previous kids ident for Baz's computer problem and Charlie helps out, it's Dash Transformation, where Dash the boy transforms into a caveman, scuba diver, and robot. Now, Season 3, Episode 14, the Runaway Ball and Steven's Fishing Lessons. First, we'll start off with the Runaway Ball. This will have Clifford, Cleo, T-Bone, Jeffy, and Billy and Betty Kittens playing in the yard. Playing in Mr. Bleakman's yard, by the way. And Mr. Bleak, and then Mrs. Bleakman gives Mr. Bleakman a warning to not yell at Clifford after the events of the feud. Because if he does one more yell, this is way before Mr. Bleakman passed away. And she warned Mr. Bleakman never to frame Clifford for something that he didn't do. Well, the feud is basically when Mr. Bleakman keeps losing his cool. Kind of like the episode Art vs. Family Feud. Now, for the Runaway Ball, they're playing in Mr. Bleakman's yard. Mrs. Bleakman tells Mr. Bleakman to never yell at Clifford or frame him again. And then Mr. Bleakman reluctantly accepts the promise. Just then, Cleo finds out that the ball has run away. And she wants to know what caused it to run away. She asks Mr. Bleakman if he took it. And he says, "No, I didn't take it." And then he asks T-Bone if he took it. And he's like, "No, I didn't take it, Cleo." And then he asks Clifford if he took it. And he says, "Of course not, Cleo. This ball is way... Of course not, Cleo. This ball is definitely not that ball." And then, of course, after this, he asks Jeffy if he took the ball, and he says no. And then he's like, "I think I know what caused the ball to run away." And then they walk over to Miss Carrington's house. And sure enough, Thomas is holding a ball. And then he's like, Cleo is like, "I bet I know what happened. The ball didn't run away. Thomas stole it." And Clifford and Cleo severely scold Jeff. And Clifford and Cleo severely scold Thomas for stealing the runaway ball. So anyway, Clifford and Cleo scold Thomas for stealing the ball. And even Emily Elizabeth punishes Thomas, telling him not to go to Mrs. Carrington's class for a week after what he just did. And he says, And Emily Elizabeth says that her dog Clifford and everyone else deserve to be treated with respect. And she says that he did not follow the rules, so there are consequences. And then, of course, the plot for Steven's fishing lessons. This is basically an altered take on the episode Fishing Lessons, a better version of Fishing Lessons. Sure, it shows a few flashbacks from the season 2 episode Fishing Lessons. And of course, Charlie then remembers the time when he was the one that kept procrastinating on teaching Emily how to fish, which leads to a flashback from the episode Fishing Lessons. And then Steven is like, well, I am not going to procrastinate on this. I am going to teach Emily Elizabeth to catch fish right from the start, right now. And believe me, I don't procrastinate. And then Steven tries really hard. And then Emily tries really, really, really hard to catch the fish. And she actually succeeds more times than she did in the original Fishing Lessons episode. She catches 5 fish. I don't think so. Charlie didn't really have a last name, but I would have to say Charlie Clash would be more like it. And then Clifford congratulates Steven for learning how to fish himself and for teaching Emily Elizabeth how to fish. And then Clifford rewards Emily Elizabeth and Steven and the kids by taking them out to get some ice cream. And then Clifford says, as long as Cleo, T-Bone, and I don't have chocolate ice cream because chocolate makes us very sick. And he says that we dogs will have strawberry ice cream and Emily Elizabeth can have chocolate ice cream or whatever flavor they want. And that they all deserve it after working hard on the fishing lesson for Steven. And then Emily Elizabeth says, what a great idea. And then Cleo says, sounds good to me. And then all the humans and dogs laugh and it ends the episode. Now the Speckle story on this DVD, on this episode is Speckle and the New Ball. And the PBS Kids ident I would choose for this one is the 2002 PBS Kids Fishbowl ident. I don't think the writers had a last name for Charlie, but I would have to say Charlie Clash would be a great last name. Now we go into the episode let's see. Now we go into the episodes Happy Birthday, Clifford, and Steven's Phone Calls, Season 3, Episode 15. So let's say Happy Birthday, Clifford is like a continuation of Clifford's Big Surprise from Season 1. So basically, Clifford is continuing the birthday celebration with Emily Elizabeth holding balloons for Clifford. Not to mention, the title card for this episode would actually be recycled from the end of the episode, Clifford's Big Surprise. Then, of course, Cleo and T-Bone give Clifford Halloween gifts or birthday gifts, and even Jeffy gives Clifford one. Now, Clifford gets a new dog bone for her birthday. Yes, Charlie Marley. Yeah. That is much better. Anyway, like I said before, it will continue off with what was left off from Clifford's Big Surprise. Then Emily Elizabeth is holding balloons. Cleo, T-Bone, and Jeffy give Clifford some gifts, and they include a new dog bone, and then, of course, a new a giant ball for Clifford to bounce on for exercise. And then, of course, a brand new big leash for Clifford, so that Clifford and Emily can take walks. And then, later on, Clifford decides to have the party at the outside of his doghouse. And the rest of the gang, including Charlie, Vaz, Steven, and even Mr. Bleakman and Jetta, join in the fun. And they all play really fun games with Clifford and sing beautiful music to Clifford. And then they have a nice celebration where they open up more gifts. And one of the gifts that Clifford receives is, of course, his very own birthday DVD right here. He's like, wow, a DVD saying happy birthday to me? This is the greatest gift ever. And then Clifford would and then, after receiving this DVD, it's time for birthday cake, which Clifford receives vanilla cake for her birthday, which has Clifford the big red dog's name on it and a white bone with a small yellow bone bringing Scholastic, covered in icing and white frosting. So that's what Clifford's birthday cake would look like in that episode. And then Clifford is like, thanks, Emily Elizabeth, and thanks everyone for such a doggone perfect birthday. And then he uses a little bit of recycled dialogue from the 2001 PC game Learning Activities, where he says, that cake, it's as clean as my dog dish after Emily Elizabeth feeds me dinner. I think everybody deserves to have a bite of this. And then Stephen is like, wow, can I? And then Emily Elizabeth says, great, let's eat. And then Jetta says, wow, your party's really fun. And then afterwards, everyone laughs at the end, with Clifford adding a few barks in between. Now for Stephen's phone call. Stephen is minding his own business, playing with his dog Jeffy, when all of a sudden he gets a very urgent phone call. And she gets a very urgent phone call from her cousin Jetta, saying that she's got really bad news. And then Stephen is like, what's that? And he's like, I'm afraid I'm going to have to go through back surgery. My back has been really hurting me for the last few months, carrying Mac in and out. And then he's like, oh no, that's awful. Well, what can you do? He's like, there's not much I can do, really, Stephen. He's like, and then Stephen is like, oh no, my cousin is going through surgery? I feel bad for my cousin. And then, of course, there is this, and then, of course, there's this one scene when, like when Stephen is talking on the phone, that Jetta is screaming uncontrollably, not because she is angry or anything, but because she can't really bear the pain in her back that she has. He's like, ow, Stephen, it hurts! Like that. That's what Jetta would say. And then, of course, after the phone call, Stephen is worried about whether or not Jetta is going to make it through surgery. And then Stephen says that he's pretty, and then Mr. Cook, Stephen's dad, says that he's pretty sure she will make it through surgery because complications are extremely rare. That calms Stephen down. And then Stephen gets a phone call again the next day, and she's like, just want to remind you, I am getting surgery in a few minutes, and I'm really scared. What am I going to do? Am I going to make it? And then Stephen is like, calm down. Calm down. Calm down. I know you're gonna make it, Jetta. Complications are very rare. You can do this. You can do this, Jetta. I believe in you. I'm your cousin. I care about you. And then Jetta is like, thanks anyway. I'm just really scared. And then Steven is like, I know, Jetta. Everything is going to be all right. I sure miss you, buddy. Goodbye. And then, of course, Mr. Cook asked Steven how the phone call was, and Steven and Cleo explained that the phone call was okay, but Steven was kind of embarrassed, along with Cleo, because they found out that Jetta was going to have... And then, of course, Jetta was like... Yeah. After the episode of Steven's phone call, I'm probably going to have to end the stream and might possibly do a part 5 next week where we go over the rest of them. We just had quite a lot of Clifford episodes to cover, and what day would you like me to do part 2? Because I have online classes Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. What day works best for you? All right, that I could try that tomorrow. So after the phone call, Steven and Clifford and the gang go play in the water, and they have a splash fight again. And all the humans and dogs laugh, ending the episode. Now the Speckle story that I would pick is Speckle and the High Sky Apples. Because in one part of Happy Birthday Clifford, they go apple picking at one point. So, and the previous kids I'll choose for Happy Birthday Clifford and Puppy Love, I'm going to have it used a 1999 PBS Kids Dot ident, where Dot the girl runs up to the screen. Yeah, Stay tuned for part 4. Part 5 will be coming tomorrow at 9 p.m. at HuskyDog88's time. Which is 7 p.m. at my time. All right.